we've got an awful lot of Disney news, which actually that is our first topic. Why don't we just jump off with our first topic, which actually is Disney. It sort of dropped last night. Disney did their earnings call, and their earnings call. Well, I mean, it wasn't good news. Let's put it that way. Now, it wasn't. It was good news and bad news for multiple facets, I guess you could say. Now, the first things first is, of course, we've got 2.4 million subscribers losing from see you later, Elizabeth Banks, from Disney Plus. Now, it's important to note with respect to this, they did just drop out of a big deal in India. So there's a certain element of that which is actually that. But I don't know how much of that is that. It's a bit, yeah. We don't.
Basically, my understanding is they've grown stagnant in Canada and U.S. And yes, a large majority of that 2.4 million is people they lost in India, but they're still in a position where they have to start cutting back on things, and that's where the rest of the
Well, I mean. Yeah, exactly. So for those that don't know, obviously they did their Q1 2023 earnings call, which is the tail end of 2022. The fiscal year that they are running is not what we have here in the UK. Do you want to explain that? Because I don't fully understand the fiscal years that they're doing with Disney's Q1 earnings call. Tom?
I don't personally understand. This is where I usually jump to Culture Casino or Valiant Renegade.
Okay. I did invite them.
One of them are available. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, because like, I was on it.
Yeah, I'm not the financial side of things. Like, I usually don't know too well, but I think it goes in quarters, I guess is the best way to put it. So
yeah, so it's the same in the UK, but normally Q1 would be January up to April. Basically, that's the Q1. So this was a bit. Well, no, that would be actually Q4 because it's April to April in the UK. So anyway, whatever. I'm not going to get into it. Basically, that was their Q1 earnings call. So they did that. And they lost a net of 2.4 million subscribers in the last 3 months of 2022, marking the streaming service's first decline since launching in late 2019. However, the quarterly earnings topped Wall Street's estimates, and that's because of Disney's theme parks. But the important thing to note about this is that they're still massively down. So although it's gone up, it's still hugely down. And yes, it beat the estimations, but again, it's still hugely down. And they obviously they lost so much money from their Disney's theme parks because of the situation, the Rona. But it's still not good. It's still not huge.
One thing they overlooked or at least ignored was mentioning like the Star Wars cruiser deal. And I know, Nick, you know that was a disaster.
Oh, big time disaster.
Yeah. Well, how much of a disaster do we know that is?
I mean, they're literally canceling dates. I mean, they can't keep. I mean, they're not having enough people sign up for this extremely expensive 2-day hotel visit. Especially with today's economy and stuff, people don't have the money for that kind of thing. You know, $6,000 for, you know, you, your wife, and 2 kids for 2 days.
Madness.
You know, it's insane. I literally went on a 2-week vacation across the country and spent half of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolute madness. So overall, Disney posted revenue of 23.51 billion, up 8%. But again, remember, it's still down, which they, you know, Variety doesn't want to say that for some weird reason. I don't understand it. It's very frustrating when they say this.
Up 8% from the bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
oh, yeah.
I was just going to say, in any gains that were really made in this quarter, Bob Iger can't even really take credit for. That's the thing.
No, that's
like
true.
He can sit there and pretend all day long, but this is all Chapek's.
Yeah.
Whatever gains they did make, and that was Chapek working literally
very
uphill,
hard.
facing a snowstorm and an ice storm, dealing with every last thing he could in the way, trying to knock him down the hill, and then Bob Iger's just standing at the top just to push him over at the end, basically.
Yeah, well, it was also actually that Bob Chapek was working against everything that Bob Iger had already set up.
Exactly.
To see over. So he had to deal with all that shitstorm and try and make it out on top.
So yeah, even though
Iger walks in, he's like, "Yeah, I did this." Like, no, you didn't.
I'm just going to undo it all. Yeah, basically. Well, that's not even completely true, because here's the funny part: is as we get into this, you'll start to see that Iger's really going to basically do a lot of the same stuff that Chapek said he was going to do, but everybody's going to kiss his ass for it.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
Exactly the same stuff. So obviously there's adjusted earnings per share of 99 cents for the quarter ending December 31, 2022. So that beat analyst consensus estimates of 23.37 billion and 78 cents. It's not exactly a lot that it's been beaten by. So 23.51 billion, 23.37 billion. Not exactly a lot. 99 cents, 78 cents. Not a huge amount. So there was this statement. Iger announced the results yesterday, Wednesday. Says, after a solid first quarter, we are embarking on a significant transformation, one that will maximize the potential of our world-class creative teams and our unparalleled brands and franchises. We believe the work we are doing to reshape our company around creativity while reducing expenses will lead to sustained growth and profitability for our streaming business, better position us to weather future disruption and global economic challenges, and deliver value for our shareholders. It's a lot of waffle that he's basically saying. So how's he going to do that? 7,000 jobs are going to be laid off. Done. 7,000 jobs gone, which coincidentally actually was what Bob Chapek got lambasted with. This was out shortly. This was shortly before he got the axe. Everyone sort of ousted him
3 months ago.
When
this came out.
I think it was like a week later he got fired, basically, wasn't it? It was so close. So Disney plans hiring freeze, layoffs, and cost cuts, according to a memo from Bob Chapek. So this
Some
is
people
already
felt that was the reason he was getting the axe. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. This is literally what was already in place. So Disney plans to freeze hiring and cut some jobs, according to an internal memo. The move comes after Disney reported disappointing quarterly results, sending the company's stock down to a new 52-week low. CEO Bob Chapek, former CEO, sent a memo to the division leaders Friday afternoon, and it says, we are limiting headcount, I can't highlight that, additions throughout a targeted hiring freeze. Hiring for the small subset of the most critical business driving positions will continue, but all other roles are on hold. Your segment leaders and HR teams have more specific details on how this will apply to your teams. As we work through this evaluation process, we will look at every avenue of opportunity of operations and labor to find savings. And we do anticipate some staff reductions as part of this review. I don't think they even gave a figure before. They just said we will.
Yeah, I don't think he ever said it exactly. Yeah. But the rumor going around at the time was that the people freaking out because they knew that it was going to be a lot of these other kind of places where all these other corporations were cutting, like the DEI stuff.
Yeah.
And all that kind of crap. Well, so that's what made a lot of people freak out, I guess, at that time. But now we're coming to learn more and more. It may be deeper than that. Like there may be other things involved, like the whole FTX scandal and everything else, which as much as they were able to keep themselves off the list, Bob Iger's name was on the lips of that one individual who said the biggest investors in FTX. So you can't hide that. And you can't deny that there's probably some major Disney connections there. So there's a lot of cleaning up going on involved in the background, but clearly they feel safer with Daddy Iger involved. So whatever. This is the guy that got him to this place in the first place. That's the problem.
It's so frustrating. It's so dumb, and everyone's going to go, "Oh yeah, great." This is literally what Chapek was going to do. So on the earnings call, Iger announced that Disney is eliminating 7,000 jobs, which is about 3.2% of its global workforce, part of a strategy to reduce costs by $5.5 billion. Oof. So restructuring Disney Entertainment as well, putting Dana Walden and Alan Bergman in charge of Disney Entertainment, basically. Not only that, is that there was like a $3 billion cutting spend on streaming content as well.
You did jump over something there that is kind of important. They are splitting off ESPN and the parks and the entertainment divisions into separate entities.
Oh, I sort of covered that briefly, but yeah.
Was basically how they appeased a couple of the other outside shareholders. I can't remember the name, Loeb or something like that was one guy's name. And this is one of the things that probably appeased Peltz or whatever, the other guy who was causing some issues. Yeah. So like this was for that reason and that reason, because you had a lot of these guys who are saying you're basically drawing from ESPN and all these other avenues and revenues to pay for the losses of Disney. Because that's what's going on here. Is last year, even though Disney was the #1 studio at the box office, they lost money if you just do the flat math, right? Yeah. And that's not even accounting movie math. Like they were like, I think around $3 billion, I think it was that Mikey and I just figured just on the surface of what they had lost in the box office compared to what they spent and what they brought in. So right there, that tells you that they're being covered by these other places. So their entertainment division, that doesn't even count the money they spent out on Disney Plus stuff, right? And we know they were spending the amount of money on these Disney Plus Marvel shows and Star Wars shows that they were basically spending on the movies.
Yeah, insane sums of cash. Yeah, insane. But that's why they're like, we need to save $3 billion there. It's like, what? $3 billion?
Well, the reason was because ESPN is their biggest money, one of their biggest money things besides the parks. It brings in billions of dollars of revenue because of the sports,
the live sports, not their programming shows.
Yeah, well, that's why they've lost money now in India as well, because they've obviously lost that, and that's why a bunch of people just like, no, see you later. I'm not going there either. We're done with that.
Well, and Sanders not wrong. They've lost like $6 billion. $6 billion seems to be the magic number all the time with Disney. Because now if you look at these cost cuts, they're just over $6 billion they got to make. $6 billion was the magic number that they were under the SEC investigation for. And that's roughly what they spent on Star Wars. Isn't it kind of weird how this is all like...
when you're cooking the books, got to round it
6 is the magic number here for some reason.
Make it easy numbers to work with, I guess.
Because once you take the amount they spent on Lucasfilm altogether, the amount they spent on the Galaxy's Edge and the Star Cruiser, there's about $6 billion. Give or take. It's like it's all around that number. Yeah, 666 is the number of the beast. Sorry, I'm not trying to be all conspiratory here, but
I was thinking the same thing before you even said
how $6 billion keeps coming up.
You ain't wrong. You ain't wrong at all. So what do we think about this, everyone? Paulie, what's your thoughts on this, buddy?
I don't know too much, as far as all the information and details. Didn't sit in on the earnings, didn't watch people watching the earnings. I could care less. It sounds like another company that overworked itself, and now it's going to be cutting back here and there. They're going to say they're not, as far as the overwokeisms, but that's what's happening, and they're going to they're going to start hitting back on the entertainment.